Welcome to the AMATIC 2017 webinar series. My name is Julie Gunkelman, and I am here to be your host today for 21 Ways to Boost an Adjunct with Michele Kelly. This presentation is sponsored by the Adjunct Faculty Issues Network. The American Mathematical Association of Two-Year Colleges, we do have several core values. One of them is about professional development in particular, and it reads, building expertise and exhibiting leadership in the teaching and learning of mathematics, enhancing personal growth, which we're doing today, and improving teaching methods and effectiveness as a personally initiated lifelong responsibility. So for more information, please see amatic.org. Please note that the views expressed by the presenter are not necessarily the views of AMATIC. Commercial products mentioned by the presenters are not endorsed by AMATIC. I just say that, have to say that every time. And without further ado, I'm going to let Michele introduce herself to you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her.
And let me share my screen here. Hi, everybody. My name is Michele Kelly, and I am here to deliver a webinar called 21 Ways to Boost an Adjunct. And someone had commented that the verb to boost was another word to steal. So I thought about changing it to 21 Ways to Lift an Adjunct, but to lift is also to steal. So we're just going to go with to boost and note that it means to elevate the value of an adjunct. I am at Macomb Community College. I'm an associate dean for arts and sciences, and Julie prefaced this with a question in the chat room, and so at any time you can just go into that chat room and tell me what you do and where you're from, and specifically really how you are engaged with adjuncts. Are you an adjunct yourself? Are you a former adjunct? Do you manage adjuncts? I'd like to know a little bit about you. As for me, I am, again, the Associate Dean of Arts and Sciences, but math doesn't fall under my area of discipline. I actually delivered a similar presentation at a developmental education conference in Cleveland, and am I? Okay. I thought I was on mute here, but I hope everybody can hear me. So my areas of management include English, reading, CSSK, which is kind of like a college success skills class. Other disciplines I manage are the foreign languages, speech, humanities, and the list goes on. I think it's important to note the fact that I manage developmental education courses, because this presentation really is about adjunct faculty and how important they are and how important great teachers are for student success. And that is true in every discipline, but I think it's particularly true for developmental education courses. So I don't know how many of you teach developmental math, but I work with a lot of developmental ed, developmental English and developmental reading teachers, and so I think it's particularly germane to developmental teachers, but applies to all disciplines. I manage 25 full-time faculty, and I have between 120 and 150 part-time faculty at any time. Part-time faculty being adjunct faculty. So I don't have a poll or anything, and I don't want you to push any buttons or include this in the chat, but I wanted to ask you a couple of true or false questions. I just want you to reflect on them as I read them. Before we jump into the 21 ways to boost an adjunct, I want to kind of level set here. First, do you think this is true or false? Adjunct faculty interact with students less often, use active and collaborative instructional strategies less frequently, spend less time preparing, and have lower academic expectations for their students than their full-time colleagues. I think that's true or false. There's actually some evidence in the research to show that there's evidence to support that as a true statement. I know true and false statements are tricky, but adjunct faculty have a small but positive effect on student learning, especially in highly specialized areas. I think that's true or false generally. Well, there's some evidence in the research to suggest that that is also true. How about this statement? Instructor type makes no difference. True or false? Surprise! It's true. So there's evidence in the research to suggest there's some truth to that. So if all of these things are true, that adjunct faculty make a negative impact, adjunct faculty make a positive impact, or teacher type makes no difference at all. If all of those things are true, then the only thing that we really know is true is that the evidence is conflicting, right? But what I think I know is true and what is really important is that we rely on adjunct faculty to teach a large portion of our developmental and our first year courses. And if I were in the room with you, I would see your heads nodding vigorously because I think that you can all agree. And we also, for our adjunct faculty do not have equal access to the resources that we think support teaching excellence, like office space or a budget or benefits. So those things are not as accessible to adjunct faculty. So I think those things are true as well. So my thesis is that students are more successful when they have great teachers. And there are inherent hurdles to great teaching if you're an adjunct faculty member. So what are those, and how can they be mitigated? I've mentioned a few, like access to resources, access to benefits, access to time, like office hours or office space. I used to have a mantra that I would say to myself, I have great responsibility and I have great accountability, but I have little power. And then I started thinking to myself, wait a minute, I do have some power. I might not have all the power, and I might not have the kind of power I think I need in order to make some change, but I have some power, and my power lies in my time and in my attention. So I would love to go into the provost's office and ask for a new layer of personnel, or to offer adjunct faculty benefits, or to give adjunct faculties more real estate on campus. And I promise that I am a soldier. When those topics come up, I am the first one in line to support those kinds of efforts, but I know that those things are not within my power. But what I do have the power to do is give my time and attention. So there's also a lot of evidence in the research, and I've got a works cited page if you're interested in reading some of the things that I read to put this together. There's a lot of evidence to say that when teachers feel included, when they feel engaged, and they feel influential, they feel more satisfied with their work and they do a better job. And therefore, I think students benefit from this. I believe this. So how can I prepare an environment where faculty feel included, engaged, and have access to some power? In other words, how can I boost adjuncts? Let's see here. Well, just a brief statement about Macomb Community College. We have about over 25,000 students who are taking 4-credit courses, and when you add in our non-credit and workforce development, we have about 48,000 students, so we're big. We have over 50% of our classes are taught by adjunct faculty. So for those math folks out there, if you didn't know this, but over 50% means a majority. So a majority of our classes are taught by adjunct faculty. We actually do a really good job supporting adjuncts, comparatively speaking. We have a lot of adjunct programs. We do an adjunct reception every year where we recognize length of service. We do an adjunct development day where we have our president and our provost talk about some of the things that are going on at Macomb. So, and we do also have a Center for Teaching and Learning. It's very comprehensive, and many of our adjuncts take advantage of our free professional development opportunities through that office. But we also have 9 bargaining units here, and sometimes they are organized, but maybe not well organized. I don't know. Sometimes they get in each other's way. How is that? So our adjunct faculty are unionized. So just a little context to let you know a little bit about Macomb. We're in Southeast Michigan, and we border Detroit. But Macomb County is one of the biggest counties in Michigan, except it doesn't have a 4-year institution. So Macomb Community College really is the higher education opportunity for students in a huge footprint of Macomb County. So it's really a pulse of our county. So back to the inclusion, engagement, and influence. The problem with calling a webinar 21 ways to boost an adjunct is that you have to come up with 21 ways. But I have some areas here that I'd like to discuss, and I want to talk about my experiences, some of the things that I've done. Hopefully they'll be useful for you, some things that you can take back to your own campuses or ask your administrators to engage in. To begin, before I talk about specific ideas related to inclusion, engagement, and influence, I want to talk about three things, the first three things that have to do with mindset. Mindset that is important when you are working with adjunct faculty. How do you think about adjunct faculty? How do you talk about adjunct faculty? The first thing is that you must believe that adjunct faculty are first human and a resource. So we take the word human resource and divide it. Human resource. The dictionary says that an adjunct is a thing added to something else as a supplemental rather than an essential part. And I'm not a math teacher, but I can imagine that the word adjunct could be a mathematical term as a supplemental rather than an essential part. But you can't think of an adjunct faculty member that way. We have to believe that our adjunct faculty are humans. And you know, that's easy to say, but we really need to lead with compassion. There's a real righteousness that comes with health insurance. So as a full-time faculty member with benefits, an adjunct faculty member without health benefits, sometimes that's the only thing that separates them. So leading with compassion is a mindset that I really commit to. There are a lot of reasons why people choose to teach. Sometimes they teach when they're retired. Sometimes they teach to make a living. Sometimes they teach because they aspire to be full-time faculty. But whatever the reason is, it's a human resource, a human reason. And we have to always remember that. The other thing is that we have to remember that they are a resource. And they're not doing me a favor. Like, I'm not doing them a favor. My adjunct faculty are doing me a favor. They are a resource to me. I need them. Unlike the definition describes, they are essential to managing our schedule and teaching our students and promoting student success. So they are essential, and we have to view them as a resource. And we can't view adjunct faculty as we can't have the mindset that we're out to get adjunct faculty either. They are an essential part. So a human and a resource, that is a mindset thing. There is a fine balance between expectations and exploitation as well. And I try my best to remember that. We have to have high expectations of our faculty to do the work that we need them to do. But we cannot exploit the fact that they are, frankly, just being paid less. They have fewer access to successful things than our full-time faculty do. So I always have to keep that in mind. The second thing is changing the language. And this is a mindset thing that I think is really important. We have agreed to use the word adjunct here in this webinar, and even culturally, we know what the word adjunct means. We use the word adjunct at Macomb Community College. Other maybe more progressive places use the word contingent, or of course there's problems with that as well, part-time faculty. But we've agreed to use the word adjunct here. In my own practice, however, when I am working with adjunct faculty, when I'm talking about adjunct faculty, I really just try not to delineate. So I just use the word faculty, and I don't delineate between full-time faculty and adjunct faculty unless it's necessary. I also try never to use the possessive. I know it's kind of a nuance, but I try to stay away from saying my adjuncts or our adjuncts, or that we own people, and that we own adjuncts. And I think that's important because it is, they're not my adjuncts. There are people who work in my departments and people who I rely on, but they're not mine. And that's just a small nuance thing, but I think that those subtleties can be important in language. And also I correct other people's language. When an adjunct faculty says something like, I'm only an adjunct faculty, I'm only this, I'm only that, I correct them instantly. I'll say something like, you may be an adjunct faculty, but I need you, and you're important and you're valuable, and it doesn't matter if you're an adjunct faculty. So I try to make them aware of the language that they're using, and I also try to change cultural language. So when I hear somebody else using the word adjunct, maybe even a pejorative way, I'm quick to correct. So I think that that language thing is important mindset issue. The third thing, and this is the hard part, is finding the money. We all have restrictions. Some of you may or may not control a budget, may not have access to any money, but I think that there are people at your institution who want to spend money and who have some money to spend. And it is really important as an administrator, as somebody who manages money, even as somebody who may be an instructor yourself, to be aware of all the different departments on campus. And that's kind of hard work to know everybody and everywhere, but I would love to go to the provost and just ask for money every time. I would love to be able to have a full flowing budget to spend on adjunct support and development. I would love to send adjunct faculty to conferences in Honolulu. These are valid efforts and I stand by them, but they aren't realistic. But there are realistic paths to finding money to support faculty. And I think that you should get creative and innovative in how to find that money. I go through, I know the people and I know all of their access to budgets. Try library enrichment. Is there centers for teaching and learning? Are there community programs on your campus? Non-credit programming? Is there distance learning? Art centers, galleries, performance centers? Are there internal grant structures? Are there development funds? There's always a little bit of money somewhere and there's always somebody willing to spend it. And I really believe that it takes very little investment actually to show how invested you are. So those are three things that kind of overarching mindset things that I think are important. And I'm including them in my 21 ways. I'd like to talk a little bit about inclusion as one of the things that make adjunct faculty feel satisfied. Job satisfaction equals student success. And the feeling of being included. I had an administrator, a colleague of mine, and we were kind of noodling over this problem of adjunct faculty and inclusion. And she said to me, how do we make our adjunct faculty include themselves more? And I stopped and I actually wrote it down because I thought, how do we make our adjunct faculty include themselves more? So I'd like you to look at this picture. And then I'm going to ask the question again. How do we make our adjunct faculty include themselves more? So we're putting the onus on the adjunct faculty to include themselves in a circle that they may not even feel invited into. So the way that I think that we make our adjunct faculty include themselves more seems really simple. Include them. So how do we make an environment that is more inclusive for our adjunct faculty? That's the right question. Here's a quote. My greatest difficulty, this is from an adjunct faculty member, my greatest difficulty is that I never know if I'm a real faculty member or not. My level of participation is entirely up to me, which is nice, but it also meant I'm never sure if I'm genuinely invited. So how do we be more inviting? How can we make sure adjunct faculty know that they are included and that they can feel included? One of the first things seems pretty easy, right, is to know them. And what I was talking about before, that my power lies in my time and attention, I have a busy job. I have a busy job with a lot of moving parts. It's really complex. I also have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I'm a busy mom. I've got lots going on. And you think that time is not something that I have a whole lot of. And you'd be right. But knowing the faculty, I consider knowing the faculty who work in my areas as my work. That is my work. So when I feel like I don't have enough time, I have to remind myself that that really is the work. So when I'm talking to an adjunct faculty member in my office, having a personal conversation with them, having a real open door policy, getting to know them, who they are, why they're here, what their expertise is, that is my work. So knowing them, it's difficult work, and sometimes it requires a lot of time and a lot of energy, but nothing, in my opinion, is more important. This might be an obvious point, but knowing their names and what they like to be called, know what they like, who they are. I keep some cards in my desk, just blank greeting cards, and when they have a new grandkid, or if they lose a parent, or if they get married, or even lose a pet, or defend a dissertation, or publish a novel, or have or adopt a baby. Those are things that are important personal things to our faculty. It reminds me that they're human, and I always send them a heartfelt note to let them know that I know them. Also, don't have an open door policy if you don't want people to come in. If you have an open door policy, if you say you have an open door policy, you have to open your door, and you have to expect people to come in, and you have to invite them in. And that's how you get to know people. Not only should you get to know them, but you should get them to know each other and also get them to know the campus. So I always consider myself an elbow, a connector, connecting them to the resources on campus and connecting them to each other. I consider the at least adjunct faculty who I have hired, I consider their orientation phase to be a lot longer than the simple general orientation that they get through HR. If they don't know something, if they're not disconnected from some resources on campus, I don't say it's in the syllabus, or you should have known that, you should learn that in orientation, right? They're professionals, and we have to expect that they're professionals and that they are committed to being informed. But sometimes they just don't know, and I like to pretend I'm their personal Google, and I'm okay with that. So they come to me, they ask questions about campus, they ask questions about how to get things, how to access things, and I'm a resource for them, and they know that. I invite them to meetings. So yeah, I invite them to meetings. So I show you this slide. This is just a snapshot of a meeting of my calendar at one point. And I invited a few adjunct faculty to this meeting, and I invited a few adjunct faculty to this meeting. So we were converting some of our classrooms in this building to computer labs. And I knew that a few adjunct faculty who are really tech savvy, who would probably use the computer labs as classrooms, would want some input, or would be really, would have a great perspective on that. So I invited a few, tapped a few on the shoulder and said, hey, I'd really like your input on this. Can you join me? You'd be amazing at how powerful that is, just to invite and include adjunct faculty into a meeting. I also invited a few adjunct faculty members to discuss the reading and writing studio. We were hiring new coordinators, and I knew that our adjunct faculty, some of them would be really committed to sending students to the reading and writing studio and working with a coordinator in some way, shape, or form. So that was just a quick snapshot of some of the types of meetings that I would invite adjuncts to. And these meetings were completely within my control. So sometimes I want to erase all of these little annotations here, and I don't really know how. Let's see, clear all my drawing. Sorry. Sometimes I invite them to meetings that I don't have control over, but I'll ask the meeting organizer, hey, I have somebody that works, in English, and I think that they would have something really interesting to say here, or I think that they would really benefit from hearing what is shared in this meeting. And 9 times out of 10, the organizer says, sure, bring them along. Everybody loves meetings. I make sure that I decode policies for our adjunct faculty. I think about our full-time faculty and their access to transparent, people who are transparent about policies. And our full-time faculty also have a role in creating those policies, and so they understand them to a different degree. Back in 2013, for example, our contract for our adjunct faculty contract changed, and it changed in a way that would affect them pretty in a really important way. And I spent a lot of time building out some charts and some really clear communication to the adjuncts who work in my area, so that they would be really clear on how this change would affect them. And I do that with other policies too, complicated things where they just can't see the whole elephant. So I spend a little extra time just decoding policies for them. Especially when it comes to their contracts or things that might, affect their livelihood. And finally, not finally, this is something about constant collaboration. I wanted to show you two examples. Jessica Sitek, she's a professor of comparative religions. She's an adjunct faculty member who teaches comparative religions, and she was working on something in a degree program, and she wanted to do an exhibit about food and religion. And she was telling me about it, and I thought, wow, that is so cool. Her thesis about how religions can be brought together over, breaking bread together. And I said, why don't you, I'm going to connect you with the librarian who is in charge of library enrichment exhibits. And I connected them together. I introduced them via email, and I said to the librarian, Jessica's going to come to you. She's got this really cool idea. How can you support her? And the librarian thought it was also a great idea. She had some money, she had some funds, and she put together this really great exhibit where Jessica was able to show off some of her work. So that's one example. I just took this picture today, actually. One of our adjunct faculty members in English wrote a novel. And so we connected her with the library and with a committee on campus who does these library fairs, and this was free to her. So she got all this publicity. She's hosting a book reading in March of this year, and we put up this huge sign up in the hallway, and that was all done not even from my budget. It was just a matter of connecting her with the right people who had a budget, an events budget, and making sure that she got some visibility for her novel. So I'm constantly connecting people in efforts to have them collaborate with one another. Finally, be a really annoying advocate. So whenever we're meeting with anybody, whenever we are meeting with anybody about anything that has to do with faculty, I'm always the one that raises my hand and says, what about the adjuncts? What about the adjuncts? How will this affect the adjuncts faculty? What about the adjunct faculty? What about the adjunct faculty? And I'm the person that is such an annoying advocate for adjunct faculty that it's getting to the point where I'm in a meeting and they know that if I'm there, I don't even have to ask the question anymore. So that's the kind of response that you want, because you want people to be thinking about adjunct faculty without somebody having to ask. So those are ways that you can include adjunct faculty, make them feel more included. I'm going to ask the same exact question but use the word engage. I probably shouldn't have put quotation marks around this, but how do we make our adjunct faculty engage themselves more? Now, engagement is one of those things that's really hard to define, but you kind of know it when you see it. You know when somebody is really engaged, when someone is really actively involved. And I think that question is still ridiculous when you ask, when you substitute the word engage, right? So how do you make them adjunct faculty engage themselves more? I think we should change the question to, how do we make an environment where adjunct faculty feel like they can engage? Because attention is a gift, right? Your attention is something that you give, and you give it to things that are worthy of your attention. And adjunct faculty are no different. So you have to make an environment where they are willing to pay attention, willing to give their attention and engage. So some of the ways that we do that, I send personal invitations to adjunct faculty. I make suggestions for people. I'll say, hey, I can't go to this meeting, or I can't go to this event. Usually it's an event, which is more fun. I'll say, I can't go to this event with the provost. Will you go in my place? Or I'll say, you know, I heard about this really cool thing that's happening downtown, and you know, I can't go. I don't. You should go. You should go. Just send them a personal invite. I know you like this. I know you like this music, or I know you like this this band, or I know you like this theater production, or I know you like this book. And I'll see things in the community, and I'll share those things with the adjunct faculty. I say, hey, I'm personally inviting you to this, or I'm going to this webinar. Why don't you come to my office and we'll listen to it together? I know you're interested in it. So I'm constantly sending them personal invitations. I'm going to put 3 of these up at the same time because it's the same idea but with a different lens. So professional development. I mentioned that we have a really awesome Center for Teaching and Learning, and they do so much, and they have tons of free workshops and tons of free not just workshops where you can work on something, but also like free seminars. Very cool stuff, and our adjunct faculty really do take advantage of that a lot. So we've got that already. But in my power, I feel like I can help adjunct faculty be more have more access to professional development opportunities if I ask them to be leaders. So number 11 here is about asking them to be leaders. I'm going to give you an example. I have a big meeting every year at the beginning of the semester with all of the adjunct faculty, and sometimes I invite full-time faculty, but really it's for them. And I invite them, and we do like little seminars or workshops based on some of the feedback I'd gotten from them from the year. And almost always I ask adjunct faculty to lead those tiny workshops. So I'll say, okay, Lisa is an adjunct faculty member who teaches English, and she teaches developmental English, and she'd been interested in universal design for learning. And I said, why don't you try to become a quasi-expert on that? Why don't you read some more this summer, become more of an expert, and then share what you know with this huge group of adjuncts that is going to be coming to this meeting. So she took me up on that. I paid her. I had a little bit of money to pay her a small stipend, and she was happy to do it. And in the meantime, she became a leader. She became a quasi-expert in this really specific area, and she was able to share with her colleagues. So all I did was just ask. And I think there are a lot more opportunities for us to do that for our adjunct faculty if we know them and we know their expertise. Another thing that I do is develop a digest of professional development opportunities that aren't immediately obvious in our brochures. So I literally sign up for every listserv there is. I sign up for every listserv if it's like an education blog or a listserv, or publishers have these education blogs, or I sign up for everything. Discussion boards, just everything. They have so much free information out there, so many free resources. And I just kind of archive things that I find interesting, articles, upcoming webinars, just cool things that are going on. I kind of handpick workshops for people. If I see something really unique that I think somebody might really appreciate, I'll send them a personal invitation and say, hey, I'm not going to this, but I think you'd really like it. But what I do is kind of collect a big archive of these resources, and at the beginning of each semester I say, hey, here's some things that I've been reading. I've been reading these articles. I've been thinking about this topic. Here's some resources that you might want to check out, free resources. In fact, if I can figure out how to share this page here, I'm going to show you what I mean. Yeah, so here's an email that I sent to the faculty. I think this was last year. And I highlight the word free, and I talk about some things that are archived, things that I've collected. I link everything, and I say, here's some conference scholarships. I give them, we had recently purchased a site license for some faculty focus things through this publication, and I linked them there. I, set up times through the Center for Teaching and Learning to watch some webinars. So I just kind of collect really cool things, and then at the beginning of the semester, I send it out. So that's, and faculty constantly are telling me how much they appreciate that, or how much they like it, or what they learned from some of the things that they took advantage of. And professional development money. So I was saying find the money earlier, and it's just really hard to do, to find the money. I'm looking at my time here. Okay, but I'll give you an example. I had collected some little brochure at some point, and they were having a conference, and it was specifically for adjunct faculty who taught writing. And it was a conference, and it was in Chicago, so it wasn't that far from us. So I asked my dean, I said, can I have $600? I want to offer 3 $200 scholarships to any adjunct who's interested in going. I actually didn't think anybody would be interested in going for just $200, but I got an overwhelming response. In fact, I had to come up with a mechanism after the fact to decide which faculty to send, and I ended up just saying first come, first serve. So I had 3 faculty who went to this little conference in Chicago. They each had $200 to get reimbursed. They got creative with where they stayed. They went together. They didn't even know each other before, and then they ended up going together. And that was just for $600. So they didn't even need, full lodging, full registration, all this stuff. They just needed a little bit of money to motivate them to go to a really great conference. In fact, this year, one of those 3 people is presenting at that conference. So that turned out really great. So just a little bit of money went a really long way. Listening and acting, and sharing and acting. So when an adjunct faculty tells you about something, listening to it, writing it down, and then sharing is important. So listening to what they have to say, writing it down, and then connecting and connecting with the right resource or collaborative partner or something. Sometimes all it takes to make a spark for an adjunct faculty to do something interesting and creative and CV worthy. And that's the same with share and act. Like I share almost everything that I read. I either collect it and archive it for my sort of annual digest, or every semester I send out this sort of digest of archive stuff, collection of stuff, or I do it immediately. I'll send out an email mid-semester and say, hey, I read these 3 articles that had to do with working with students with disabilities in your class, and I think that they would be interesting to you. Or if I read a really great Chronicle article, I know a subscription to the Chronicle is really expensive, and I have a subscription to it, and sometimes I'll send out articles from the Chronicle or wherever that I think are particularly relevant. So I'm always sharing with faculty. So another thing that will make faculty feel more satisfied with their work is if they feel like they have some influence. And if you feel like you are valued and you feel like you are an essential part, not an adjunct part, but an essential part, then you may feel like you have more power. And that's, in my opinion, an important part. So how do we make faculty feel more influential? How do we make an environment where faculty feel like they have some access to power? First, leverage their expertise. We've got amazing faculty who have done so many cool things, have written about cool things, have studied and researched cool things, who have taught in unusual places. And if we know them, then we can leverage that. It's amazing when you just ask people what they're up to, what they're doing, what they're teaching, what they're reading, what they'll share, and just how interesting the faculty the people who are around you. How do you leverage that? How do you get them to share their expertise in a workshop, or in something sponsored by the CTL, or something in library enrichment? So leveraging their expertise is important. Go back to those budgets. What can they lead? Connect them. So part of leveraging their expertise is giving them a mechanism to tell you what they're doing. And I did something really simple. So in my email signature, our logo is, or our motto, what is that, a motto, a logo, tagline is Discover, Connect, Advance. And what I did with my tagline, I just made the word advance a hyperlink, and then I connected it to this really simple SurveyMonkey form. And if they've got something that they've done recently, if they've just finished a degree or a certificate, if they passed an exam, if they published anything, an article, a book, a poem, whatever, they can click on any email that I've ever sent them. They can click on that word advance, and it will take them to this form, and then it will notify me. I call it a faculty achievement portfolio. And it'll notify me that somebody's input something there, and I kind of can keep track of what people are telling me. Java is going to make me install right now. Let's see. So here's an example. Melissa Gruno is a faculty member who recently wrote a novel, and it's a memoir. She wrote a memoir, but she does all kinds of stuff. She's reading this memoir all over the place. She's a poet. She is a real active professional writer, and so she always tells me what she's up to. One time she told me that she was doing she was performing in like a live, not open mic, but like a prepared scripted open mic kind of thing. And she told me about it in this portfolio, and I went, and it was awesome. So that was just like a little side note, but I don't know what they're up to unless they tell me in my doorway or if they tell me here. And this gives them a chance to reflect on how they want to tell me, and it really can be anything, and people have used all sorts of examples. So that's a mechanism for them to be able to tell me. And then what I do is I turn around and I tell their story. So I know all the people in marketing. They probably think I'm annoying. I'm constantly sending the media relations people who write our website, people who write our internal newsletter, which is called The Emphasis. I know those people, I know who the writers are, and I'm constantly sending them ideas. Now, I don't send them every time somebody publishes an article. I don't send them you know, a notice of that. But if somebody publishes a memoir, sure, I'll send them that. Or I'll say, hey, this is, we have an adjunct faculty member who is a ballroom dancer. And so that just is an interesting side thing that she does. But knowing that, we sent off, I shared that with somebody in media relations, and they wrote an article about it. And actually, I'll show you what our internal emphasis looks like here. Emphasis looks like this. It's an internal newsletter. It comes out every month, and it's got all kinds of, you know, little stories in it, but this is an example. So adjunct faculty member named Francisco Lopez, he teaches humanities for me. He's just an interesting person with a great history, and so I suggested to our media person that they do a profile on him, and they did. So he told me something, I shared that story, and so it's not enough to just let them tell me, but I have to also share that. You can rely on them to do a lot, but you have to be able to pay them, and it doesn't require a whole lot. It's just some sort of stipend. So if you say, I know that you're an expert in this area, I can't pay you a lot, but I can pay you X stipend. I can pay you $50 to do X, Y, or Z with that expertise, to come and support me in a webinar, to help me write something. And I can pay them small stipends, and that really seems to motivate them. A small amount of money or a small amount of praise, I guess, will, money, money first, praise second, but just a small investment will really motivate them to help and not only engage, but also feel like they have like they have some say. Brainstorm with them. When you are working through a problem, think about all the expertise you have around you, and think about how that expertise can influence your problem solving. So when I'm brainstorming on something, I was recently thinking about how I might share with faculty more resources about how to work with students with disabilities in their class. good news is that more students than ever have access to higher education. The bad news is that our faculty aren't really prepared to work with students on the spectrum, for example. Students who are on the autism spectrum, we have more and more students every year coming to campus, which is awesome. We have fewer and fewer faculty who know how to approach and teach and lift those kinds of students. So I was thinking through ways to help faculty with that problem. And I asked a few adjunct faculty and full-time faculty to help me brainstorm on that, give me a couple of ideas. So I do that pretty frequently. And the last thing I say, the 21st thing, is get them a job. Now you'd say, well, nobody gives away a good dog, but getting them a job is sometimes the thing that they want. So I just want to give you one quick example of something that.
Your screen is blocked right now by something that you have up. It's okay. So it's just that it's not the window that you're sharing, so we just see black right now.
Aha, black. Okay.
Yeah.
What am I sharing? Okay, let me try to just start over.
That's fine. That'll do it. That'll definitely do it.
Yes?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to share with you, oh, I know it was this Java. Yes, I don't want to install Java right now. Is it, do you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Or is it black?
Nope, we can see the
Okay.
PowerPoint, but there's a black box in front of it. Oh,
Okay.
now it's gone.
Okay. Okay. I was going to share with you a letter that I write in the vein of getting them a job. So a lot of faculty ask me for recommendation letters, and I won't write a recommendation letter unless I feel like recommending them. But if I do feel like recommending them, I think that it's important that I write an accurate letter, and that they have that letter and they can use it if they want to. So what I do is write an accurate letter, a letter that I think, you know, really typifies who they are as an instructor and how I would recommend them. And then I give them permission to change the highlighted parts. So I'll say, here's a letter of recommendation that you asked for. You have my permission to change the parts that are highlighted to meet your needs. Sometimes I'll highlight the date. Sometimes I'll highlight the, you know, the to part. Sometimes I'll highlight some words that I think would change depending on whether or not they're applying to a university or a community college. And I give them some opportunity to change some of those words so that they can use it in the future. And I just have to trust that they're ethical, and usually the people who I end up writing recommendation letters for, I really believe that. So that's something that I do. And I'm always sending them job descriptions. I'm like, I don't want to lose you, but this sounds like something that's really up your alley. So good luck. And if you need my help, I would be happy to write you a recommendation letter, or if I know somebody at that institution, I would be happy to recommend you personally. So those are the 21 ways that I try to use my time and my attention to support adjunct faculty, to make them feel more included, to help them feel more engaged, to help them feel more influential. And I do that with the mindset that they are a human resource, that they that the language that we share about adjunct faculty is important, and that I forgot my third one. And that we find some money to support them, money or a path to support them any way that we can, and we can get creative doing that. And I believe that when adjunct faculty feel supported in that way, that they are better in the classroom, and that when they're better in the classroom, then the students are more successful. So that's my shtick. What kind of questions do we have? Do we have even time for questions?
You do. You have
Okay.
a few minutes. You guys can add some if you'd like. I think that you answered. There were like two things that came up in the chat box along the way, and maybe something else will come up now, but I think you answered them. So in the way beginning, when you were talking about, like, you were setting up for the conflicting information about adjuncts, your true-false questions, one of the things that was said in the chat window was talking about why do they have a small impact. And so it was one of those things that I think you answered when you were talking about all the conflicting information and the research that was out there.
Right.
So I think
I'd be happy to share my works cited too. With you if you'd like to read some of that.
Yeah, many of the people who attended the webinar today and more joined in after you started. They definitely manage adjuncts, or that's part of their job. Like at my institution, for example, the department chairs are in charge of the adjuncts, so that's the first level of contact, if you will. It doesn't go right to a dean. So I bet that's this kind of similar situation. I mean, some people had cited 25, and these people are teaching full time too, obviously, and then managing the people.
Yeah.
The other thing that came up was a question in the chat box, and it was something about hours for adjuncts. So I think it was something referring when you were talking about inviting adjuncts to meetings. Let's see, and this is it. It says, I imagine that the hours spent attending these meetings, professional development, et cetera, have to be reported as part of their hours. Is that true?
No, not the way that we pay adjunct faculty. We have them in contract, and it's never enough to make the case for it being like a full credit hour example of pay. So the way that we pay our adjuncts isn't like or billable hours, but in credit hours that they teach. And then stipends on top of that are sort of extra or separate, and they're very clear on what they're getting paid for and by what time, what time period.
Okay.
So that's how we kind of handle that.
Okay. Did anyone else have? Oh, there is something else. Let's see. So have been an adjunct and a tutor for 19 years. So there's obviously, I mean, I was an adjunct too. I'm sure many of the people in the webinar today at one point were an adjunct, like you said, for a variety of reasons. I did it when my kids were little because it was a great part-time gig and I didn't have to work full-time. It was kind of nice about that.
Yeah.
There's another question about what about keeping their hours below the ACA requirement?
Yeah, our formula is for faculty can only, we have a formula that equates to part-time hours, and faculty can only teach 11.5 hours. And the faculty in my areas, the math works out that there's very few combinations that even get close to that. So it's not 2 courses. So sometimes they'll teach 3 courses at 9 hours, and they'll have 2.5 sort of equated hours to work with. So we are cognizant of that ACA requirement, but we have a pretty clear formula on how that works. And yeah, I mean, I don't expect adjunct faculty to come to all the meetings.
Right, definitely, probably not. We do still have a few more minutes if there's anything. I know when I listen to you, Michelle, I want to work for you. I didn't even teach one of the subjects. I'm like, this is like, don't tell my boss. I know we're recording this, but oh my gosh, I'm like, I would love to work for Michelle. I mean, really, it's I follow Simon Sinek a lot. He's on YouTube, and he's got a blog and stuff. And what he says is that leaders aren't in charge. They take care of people in their charge. And I heard that from the beginning of your webinar today, that you just really genuinely care about the people who work for you. And I think that's awesome.
That's how I steal adjuncts. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You know what? If we had the little sound right there, that would be a good one.
I had a laugh track for you all. But
Exactly. All right, then I am going to take over. I do have a little bit of housekeeping here yet to do with you guys. So let's see if I can get back. And
Julie, if I can just say thank you so much to AMATIC and for the Adjunct Faculty Issues Network for hosting me and letting me
Well, thank you, and I'm
talk
sure
my
you'll
talk.
get some kudos in the chat window here as we wind down. It was a very well spent hour, most
Thank
definitely. So I wanted to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. If you want to support future AMATIC webinars, please consider becoming a member. You can always go to bit.ly/join-amatic. We are on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, so check us out on social media if you haven't joined. Also, each of the regions have got a Facebook page now within AMATIC, so you want to check those out as well. All the recordings of past AMATIC webinars are on our website, and I do have a bit.ly for that too. It's amatic.webinars. It usually takes me about a week or two to produce this and upload it and get it up there for you. I do need you to fill out this survey. That would be awesome. It only takes about 2 minutes. You're going to want to go to bit.ly/amatic, and I think I can, let me see if I can grab the URL for that so you can get it directly here in the chat window. Yeah, here we go. I think that'll work. Yep, it's a Survey Monkey, so it'll lead you right there. Again, just big, warm, thank you so much for spending an hour with us today, Michele.
Thank you to the hundreds of thousands of math faculty who came today.
This was awesome. I'll hang on the line a little bit. I am going to turn off the recording, though.